It was the cold night before Christmas. I was on a ladder hanging lights when I heard my sister's voice slip through the cracked window. "I don't want to spend Christmas with that loser," my mother whispered back. "Just until she pays for the rest of the remodel. Then we're done." I gripped the light string like a rope. They thought I was just their walking wallet. They hadn't met the version of me with a plan. My name is Emma Ramirez. I am 35 years old, and I own Brighthammer Construction. It is not a large company. It is a small, dedicated workshop in Riverton, a flat, sprawling Midwestern city where the winters bite hard and the summers are thick. I have a crew of 6, and we specialize in high-end remodels and custom cabinetry. I built Brighthammer from nothing. My hands are not soft. They are mapped with old scars from utility knives and rough-sawn lumber. I know the precise smell of curing concrete, the heft of a perfectly balanced framing hammer, and the specific exhaustion that comes from building something real in the world. My reputation is solid. My work lasts. My parents live in a quiet, tree-lined suburb of Riverton. It is the house I grew up in, a 2-story colonial that had been slowly fading until I stepped in. For the past 6 months, my company has been gutting and rebuilding it, piece by piece. My father, Arthur, is a good man, a soft man. For 20 years, he has owned Maple Steam, a small coffee shop downtown with a worn mahogany counter and a clientele of loyal regulars who have been arguing about local politics on the same stools since I was in high school. He is kind, trusting, and perpetually overwhelmed by the women in his life. He sees the good in people, which is another way of saying he refuses to see the bad. My mother, Gloria, does not work. She floats through life on a cloud of perceived sacrifice. Her constant refrain, delivered at every family dinner, is about the promising career she abandoned for motherhood. What that career was has never been specified. Her true vocation is spending. She has a taste for luxury that is directly at odds with my father's modest income from the shop. For years, I have been the silent, reliable supplement. Then there is my sister, Brianna. She is 31. She is married to Miles, a lawyer at a decent, if unremarkable, downtown firm. They just bought a new house in a newer, more sterile suburb than our parents. Brianna lives her life through a lens of comparison. Her happiness is measured by what she has versus what others possess. She is pretty, sharp, and carries a core of casual cruelty that she mistakes for wit. I am the family bank. I am the fixer. My money, earned from sawdust and sweat, paid for their last big vacation, an all-inclusive trip to Hawaii. It paid for the designer handbag Gloria absolutely had to have for a wedding. It paid for Brianna and Miles's ski trip to Colorado last winter, and for the past 6 months, it has paid for the complete transformation of our family home. I installed the new kitchen custom maple cabinets, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances. That was $8,000 just for the cabinets. I did the master bathroom floor-to-ceiling tile, a walk-in shower with a frameless glass door, a new double vanity, $12,000. I put on a new roof after the last hailstorm, $15,000. I replaced the entire HVAC system when the furnace died in October, $11,000. New flooring, new paint, new lighting, new hardware. My crew and I did the work, and I covered the materials and the subcontractor's labor. They love the house. They hate my job. To them, Brighthammer Construction is Emma's cute little workshop. They wrinkle their noses when I show up for dinner still in my work boots, smelling faintly of wood glue and primer. "Honey, you have got to find a job where you do not get so filthy," Gloria would say, handing me a glass of wine with perfectly manicured fingers. "What man is going to want a woman who spends all day in the mud?" Brianna would add, scrolling through her phone. They never seemed to connect the mud on my boots with the marble threshold they now stood on. Which brought me to this moment, Christmas Eve. The air was so cold it felt like swallowing glass. It was dark, the sun long gone by 5 o'clock, and I was on an 8-foot aluminum ladder on my parents' front porch, my fingers numb inside my gloves. I was hanging the expensive, vintage-style Christmas lights, the ones Gloria had insisted on. My breath plumed in front of my face in white bursts. The bulbs were cold and slick in my grasp. As I clipped a light to the gutter, I could see my reflection in the dark bay window of the living room, a bundled figure, isolated against the night. The window was cracked open just an inch, letting a sliver of warm, muffled air escape, and with it, voices. "I just cannot stand it, Mom," Brianna said. Her voice was sharp, a familiar whine that set my teeth on edge. It is bad enough we have to pretend to care about her boring work stories, but must she be here for Christmas morning? I do not want to spend the holiday with that loser. I froze. My hand, reaching for the next clip, stopped mid-air. The plastic light string felt suddenly brittle, ready to snap. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice, lower, conspiratorial, soothing. "I know, baby. I know. Just be patient. It is almost over." "What is almost over?" "The house," Gloria whispered. "Just until she pays for the rest of the remodel. The flooring invoices are the last part. Once those are clear, we are done. We can finally cut things off. It is getting embarrassing having her around all the time, looking like that." A cold, heavy weight settled in my stomach, denser than any concrete pour. It was not shock. It was a sickening, slow confirmation of 1,000 tiny slights, 1,000 moments of being overlooked and undervalued. This was the blueprint beneath the surface. "And Miles has the papers ready," Gloria continued, her voice gaining a little energy. "The new inheritance papers. He did such a good job. It is all set. Everything will go to you. Brianna, we will make sure Emma does not get a single cent. She has her little company. After all, that is enough for her." I did not move. I stayed on the ladder, listening to the silence that followed. Inside the house, my mother and sister were deciding my worth. Outside, the wind cut across the porch, making the wires sway. I gripped the light string. I thought about the weight of the roof I had installed, the precise joinery of the cabinets I had built, the solid floor under their feet. I thought about the $57,000. And the hours, the endless, back-breaking hours, given freely, because I believed I was taking care of my family. I looked at my reflection in the glass, the loser on the ladder, slowly, deliberately. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the next plastic clip. My fingers, though numb, worked with practiced efficiency. I secured the light. I moved the ladder. I clipped the next one. I worked my way around the entire porch, methodical and silent. I did not rush. I did not tremble. By the time I was finished, the house was outlined in a perfect, brilliant glow. It looked like a postcard. It looked like a home full of warmth and love. I climbed down the ladder, folded it, and leaned it against the garage. I walked to the outdoor outlet and plugged in the extension cord. The entire house blazed to life instantly. Inside me, something cold and dark and meticulously planned was also coming to life. They were right. It was almost over. They just had the ending wrong. A different set of blueprints was unrolling in my mind. Not for construction, for a clean, precise, and total demolition. Christmas Day was a blur of polite, hollow smiles. I made my excuses early. By 7 o'clock that night, I was back in my own office at the Brighthammer Construction Workshop. The building was empty, silent except for the hum of the servers and the quiet tick of the furnace. Outside my window, the streetlights cast long shadows on the fresh snow. I did not turn on the overhead lights. I just used the glow from my 2 large monitors. This was my sanctuary. The walls were covered in architectural drawings, material samples, and timelines for my active projects. The air smelled of sawdust and coffee. I sat in my high-backed chair, the one molded to my spine after years of long nights, and I began to build my case. This was not a construction project. This was an audit of my own stupidity. I opened my accounting software, my bank statements, and the dedicated project folder on my server labeled Project Colonial. I worked backwards from that night on the ladder. First, the major expenses. The ones that were easy to recall. The roof, that was $15,000. It had to be a complete tear-off after the hailstorm. I had the invoice from the supply house for the architectural shingles and the ice and water shield, and the payroll records for my crew for the 3 days it took to install. The kitchen. My custom cabinet shop built it. $8,000 just for the materials and the finishing. That was my cost, not my retail price. I had provided the maple, the high-end hardware, and the quartz countertops at wholesale. The master bathroom, $12,000. That included the frameless glass enclosure, the heated flooring system, the plumbing subcontractors, and the floor-to-ceiling tile that Gloria had picked out. The expensive Italian kind that looked like marble. The HVAC system, $11,000. The old furnace had been red-tagged in October. I had replaced the entire system, including a new 3-ton air conditioning unit for the summer. That was $46,000, right off the top. But that was not everything, not even close. I went deeper. The site prep and drywall replacement for the new kitchen layout, $5,000. The new insulated garage door and opener, $2,000. The new concrete walkway and the landscaping refresh by the front porch, $4,480. Then came the smaller items. The death by 1,000 cuts, paint, primer, new interior doors, new baseboards, new light fixtures, hardware for every cabinet and door in the house. I cross-referenced every bank transfer, every credit card statement, every receipt I had scanned and filed. My bookkeeping was meticulous. It was the only way a small business like mine survived. I stopped when I reached the final number. It stared at me from the screen. $57,480. It was not a vague estimate. It was a precise, documented, and verifiable fact. Every cent was accounted for. I began to organize the files. I created a new master folder on my desktop. I called it Evidence. Into it went the scanned invoices, highlighted with the paid stamp from my accounts, the PDF copies of the bank transfers from my Brighthammer business account to the subcontractors, the material supply receipts, the signed-off permits from the city of Riverton, the progression photos my team and I always took, showing the before, the during, and the after, the rotten-out subfloor, and the new, solid one that replaced it, the old, knob and tube wiring, and the new, safe-to-code electrical panel. I worked for hours. When I was done, I synced the folder to my encrypted cloud account. I copied it to a password-protected external hard drive, and finally, I saved a third copy to a sleek, metallic USB drive, which I held in the palm of my hand. It felt heavy. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. The screen burns still visible on my eyelids. The numbers were cold. The feelings were not. I saw every moment of manipulation, now illuminated by that conversation on the porch. "Emma, honey, we are just in a tight spot," Gloria had said back in the spring, her hand on my arm. "Your father's shop? This economy. If you could just front the materials for the kitchen, we will pay you back as soon as the house is reassessed." "Come on, Emma," Brianna had chimed in, wine glass in hand. "It is just some wood. You get that stuff for free, right? It is for the family." I let them believe it. I let them leverage my love for my father. I let them use my competence as their personal resource. Why had I never drawn up a contract? A simple promissory note. The answer shamed me, because I trusted them. Because, deep down, I was still the 35-year-old woman desperate for the approval of a mother who saw me as a disappointment and a sister who saw me as a competitor. I was the strong one, the capable one, and in our family that meant I was the one who gave. And they were the ones who took. Asking for a contract would have been tacky. It would have been untrusting. It would have meant I was not a good daughter. I opened my eyes. The anger was back, cold and sharp. I remembered every casual insult, every backhanded compliment. "It is amazing what you do, Emma, but what man is going to want to marry a woman who knows how to use a nail gun?" That was Gloria. "I would just die if I had to wear those steel-toed boots." That was Brianna. "They are so thick." They saw me as a muddy, unfeminine workhorse, a useful, simple-minded tool, a loser on a ladder. but they had no problem living inside the beautiful, expensive, structurally sound house that my dirty job had paid for. They had made a critical mistake. They thought I was just a builder. They forgot I was a business owner. I knew I could not just take the house. It was not my name on the deed. That belonged to Arthur and Gloria Ramirez. Demanding ownership was pointless, emotional, and legally impossible, but the $57,480, that was a different story. That was a debt, and I was a creditor. I swiveled in my chair and opened a new browser tab. I was not a lawyer, but I had dealt with enough clients who tried to skip out on a final payment to know my rights. I typed in the search bar, Riverton State Code Mechanics Lien. The law was clear. A contractor, subcontractor, or material supplier who provides labor or materials to improve a property has a legal interest in that property. It is called a mechanic's lien. It is not a request. It is a legal claim, a cloud on the title, with a lien filed. My parents could not sell the house. They could not refinance it. They could not transfer the deed. And most importantly, Miles could not push through any new inheritance paperwork without addressing the massive primary debt attached to the asset. I checked the statutes. In our state, a contractor had 90 days to file a lien after the last day of furnishing labor or materials. My heart beat a little faster. Gloria's words from the porch. Just until she pays for the rest of the remodel, the flooring invoices are the last part. The flooring, it was the final item. My crew was scheduled to start the installation in 2 weeks. After the new year, the clock had not even started ticking. They had planned their betrayal perfectly, but in doing so, they had left my legal window wide open. I shut down the computer. The office went dark, except for the blinking green light on the server rack. I stood up and put the metallic USB drive in my pocket. A new set of rules was forming in my mind, as clear and precise as a blueprint. First, I drew a hard red line. No verbal negotiations, no tearful confrontations, no appeals to a family loyalty that did not exist. From this moment on, all communication would be through documents and, when the time came, through legal counsel. Second, the objective. This was not about destroying my father. He was a fool for his trust, just as I had been. But I did not believe he was part of the conspiracy. He was a victim. The targets were the thieves Gloria, Brianna, and their puppet lawyer, Miles. Third, the plan. It would have 3 branches, executed in order, the legal prong, filing the lien, perfecting the claim, making the debt undeniable, the moral prong, the truth, gathering the proof of their intent, so that when the legal hammer fell, my father would know exactly why it happened and who had held it. The psychological prong. The timing. I would not act now. I would wait. I would let them finish the remodel. I would let them pay the final invoices. I would let them sit in their new, beautiful, expensive home and think they had won. I would let them file their new inheritance papers. And then, at the moment of their greatest comfort, I would strike. I laid out my own rules of engagement. No children would be brought into this. No threats. No violence. This would not be a messy, emotional explosion. It would be a procedure, a clean, orderly, and absolute execution of the facts. They wanted to cut me off. I was going to sever them from the very foundation I had built for them. I walked out of my office, the USB drive cold against my hand, and locked the door behind me. I had my crew start the hardwood flooring installation on the 2nd of January. It was the last major phase of the project. I supervised the first day, my voice echoing in the half-empty rooms, my tone all business. I was polite, I was professional, and I was precise. I ate a quiet lunch with my father at Maple Steam, discussing coffee bean roasts and the dismal performance of the local basketball team. He was happy, oblivious, and proud of the work. It was a special kind of torture. That Friday, I accepted an invitation for a late family dinner. It was a celebration, Gloria announced, for the near completion of her beautiful new home. I brought an expensive bottle of wine. I smiled until my face ached. I listened to Brianna talk about her husband's caseload and my mother's plans for a spring garden party, I played the part of the dutiful, boring, slightly disappointing older daughter. When the dinner was over, I feigned exhaustion. I told them I was too tired to drive back to my apartment and would just stay in my old bedroom. "Fine, honey," Gloria said, waving a dismissive hand, the new diamond bracelet I had not seen before glinting on her wrist. "Just try not to wake us all up when you leave for your mud pit in the morning." I smiled. "I will be quiet." I went upstairs to my old room. The house was filled with the sounds of its new life, the hum of the high-efficiency furnace, the soft click of the new refrigerator's ice maker. I lay on the bed in my clothes, listening. 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 in the morning. I waited until I heard the faint, definitive sounds of my father snoring down the hall. I waited another hour. At 2:15 in the morning, the house was perfectly still. I slipped out of the bed. I was already wearing dark sweats, and my socks made no sound on the new, perfectly laid hardwood. I knew this house better than they did. I knew which floorboards, even the new ones, rested on the oldest joists. I moved down the hallway like a shadow. My mother's home office was at the end of the hall. It was less an office and more a room for her vanity, her shopping, and her laptop. The door was, as I expected, slightly ajar. I eased it open. The air was thick with the cloying scent of her expensive perfume, and there it was, on her antique writing desk, her laptop, sleek, silver, and asleep. I touched the trackpad. The screen glowed to life, illuminating my face in the dark. No password. Of course there was no password. Gloria believed in aesthetics, not security. Passwords were an inconvenient, ugly necessity for other people. I did not use her browser. I opened a private, incognito window, one that would not save my search history or cookies. I accessed her webmail. The inbox was cluttered with promotions from designer boutiques and spa packages. I went to the search bar. My fingers, steady and sure from years of precise work, typed in the first name. Miles. The results filtered instantly. An email chain, a long one, stretching back over a year. The subject line was estate planning. I read, from Gloria Ramirez to Miles Proctor. Subject re-estate planning. "Miles, darling, I spoke to Arthur, but he is being sentimental. He still wants to split everything 50-50. He does not understand. I am handling it. From Miles Proctor to Gloria Ramirez. Subject re-estate planning. Sentimental is irrelevant. The goal is to protect the primary asset, which is the house. The work Emma is doing is significantly increasing its value. We need to leverage that. Let her finish everything. Get the final appraisal. Then we update the will. We can cite your contributions as homemaker and his declining business sense as reasons to shift control to you and Brianna as co-executors. From Gloria Ramirez to Miles Proctor. Subject re-estate planning. She will be furious when she finds out. From Miles Proctor to Gloria Ramirez. Subject re-estate planning. Let her be furious. What is she going to do? Sue? It will be ironclad. She has her cute little workshop. You and Brianna will have the real security. Just keep her working. My breath caught, but my hands did not shake. This was the confirmation, the cold, black and white proof. I pulled the slim USB drive from my pocket. I did not just take screenshots, which could be faked. I began to export the entire email chain, the raw EML files, the files that contained the header data, the metadata, the originating IP addresses, the exact, unforgeable timestamps. I saved the chain to the drive, then I went back to the search bar. Northwind, only one result appeared, not an email, but a deleted item she had failed to purge from the trash folder. It was a bank transfer confirmation, a transfer of $20,000 from my parents' joint savings account to an entity listed as Northwind Shared LLC. The date was 3 months ago, right after I had paid the $15,000 invoice for the new roof. I searched her inbox again. Transfer. Bank. Account. Nothing. She had been careful. She had deleted the correspondence, but she had forgotten the confirmation in the trash. I saved the PDF. $20,000. Who was Northwind? I tried one more search. It was a long shot. A half-remembered name from old family barbecues. Darren. The inbox flooded. A chain of emails. Hundreds of them. With a sender I recognized instantly. D. Hale Investments. Darren Hale, my father's friend from college, his golfing buddy, the man who had been at our house for Thanksgiving just 6 weeks ago, clapping my father on the back and drinking his best scotch. The language was not financial. It was sickening. From D to Gloria. Subject our future. I cannot stop thinking about you, this new life. Northwind is the key, our fresh start. From Gloria to D. Subject our future. I know, my love. It is almost here. Arthur is a fool. He is so busy with that failing little coffee shop. He has not even noticed the transfer. The 20,000 is safe. Our nest egg is growing. My stomach turned. It was not an investment. It was a slush fund. My father's money, my money, siphoned away to fund my mother's affair. I kept scrolling down, my nausea mixing with a cold, rising dread, and then I found it. The email that stopped my heart. From Gloria Ramirez to Darren Hale. Subject, the final step. Miles says the estate papers will be ready by February. Once the house is appraised and the assets are transferred, it will all be in my name. Then we just have to finalize the plan for dealing with Arthur. He will never agree to a divorce, not with his pride. We have to be smart about this. We have to be final. Dealing with Arthur, finalize the plan. We have to be final. The words hung in the silent, perfume-soaked room. It was not asking for a divorce. It was not leaving him. It was dealing with him. It was the sterile, procedural language of a removal, of an obstacle. This was not just theft. This was not just adultery. This was something dark, something monstrous. My training took over. I was no longer a daughter. I was an investigator. I exported every single email with Darren Hale. I exported the bank transfer. I exported the entire thread with Miles. I cross-referenced the metadata. The IP addresses from Darren's emails matched the locations of his supposed business trips. The timestamps of Gloria's replies matched the times my father was working late at Maple Steam, trying to keep his small business alive. I had it all. I safely ejected the USB drive. I cleared the private browser's cache. I erased the log of recently opened documents. I put the laptop back to sleep. I pushed the desk chair back to the exact angle I had found it. I slipped out of the room. I left 0 digital footprints. I got back into my old bed. But I did not sleep. The sky was turning a sick, grayish purple before I even closed my eyes. The digital evidence was overwhelming, but it was all from the past. I needed to know what dealing with Arthur meant. Right now. I needed to know what they were planning for February. The next day, I went to a specialty electronics store, the kind that caters to private investigators and paranoid spouses. I did not use my company card. I paid in cash. I bought 3 devices. They were not cheap. Top-of-the-line micro recorders, voice-activated, to conserve power, a standby battery life of 4 weeks. They were the size of a sugar cube. I needed to go back one more time. I made an excuse 2 days later. I told my mother I needed to check the grout lines in the new master bathroom, that the curing time was critical. She waved me in, annoyed at the interruption to her day. I had less than an hour. I went to the bathroom, ran the water in the sink to create noise, and waited. I heard her go downstairs. My heart was a hammer against my ribs. This was different. This was not data recovery. This was active surveillance. But dealing with him had changed the rules of engagement. 1. I went to the living room. The large framed photograph of the happy family sat on the new mantel. My father, my mother, Brianna, and me, all smiling. A beautiful lie. I slipped the first device behind the frame, adhering it to the drywall. It was invisible. 2. I went to the kitchen. The new island was her command center. It was where she took her calls, drank her wine, and entertained her friends. I crouched down, pretending to inspect the kick plate. I secured the second device with high-strength adhesive tape, right underneath the quartz countertop, near the outlet where she plugged in her phone. 3, the most dangerous. I went back upstairs, into her office. The jewelry box, the one my father had given her for their 20th anniversary, sat on her vanity. I opened it, a tangle of gold chains, gaudy rings, and earrings. I tucked the third recorder deep into the plush velvet lining of the lid, a place she opened every day, but would never think to inspect. I was in and out of the house in 15 minutes. I drove away, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I left nothing behind. Nothing but 3 tiny, silent witnesses, patiently waiting in the dark to record the truth. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization. By day, I was Emma Ramirez, owner of Brighthammer Construction. I lived in a world I controlled, a world of measurable progress. I walked my active sites, the air sharp with the smells of fresh-cut lumber and curing concrete. My boots crunched on sawdust. I consulted blueprints, my red pen marking adjustments. I solved problems. When a supplier delivered the wrong gauge steel studs for a commercial build-out, I did not panic. I was on the phone for 20 minutes, my voice firm and clear, and had the correct materials expedited by 4 o'clock. My crew respected me because I was fair. I was exacting, and I was always the first on site and the last to leave. This world made sense. The rules were based on physics and contracts. By night, I was someone else entirely. I was an archivist of my own betrayal. My evenings developed a grim ritual. I would return to my quiet apartment, shower the plaster dust and wood smoke from my skin, and make a simple dinner I rarely tasted. Then I would go into my home office, lock the door, and put on my noise-canceling headphones. The audio files synced wirelessly from the recorders to a secure, encrypted partition on my hard drive. A new file would appear each night, time-stamped. I would label them, file them, and then I would listen. Most of it was nothing. The recorders were voice-activated, but they still picked up hours of useless, ambient sound. The groan of the new HVAC system kicking on, the muffled drone of a television, the clatter of plates and silverware, the running water of the new dishwasher I had installed. And then there were the voices. I learned to distinguish the sounds of the kitchen recorder from the living room recorder. The one in my mother's jewelry box was the clearest. I listened to my father. This was the hardest part. I heard him come home every evening around 7. I heard the weariness in his voice as he'd call out, "Gloria, I'm home." Usually, there was no reply. I heard him in the kitchen, making himself a latte, the hiss of the steam wand on the espresso machine from Maple Steam. He had a professional grade machine at home. I heard him talking, sometimes to himself, sometimes to Gloria, who was clearly in the other room. He'd talk about the price of coffee beans, about a regular customer whose wife was sick, about the city's plan to repave the street out front. His voice was kind. It was tired. It was lonely. He was living in a beautiful, fully renovated house, and he was completely, utterly alone. I heard him open the refrigerator, sigh, and then the sound of a cabinet, one of my custom-built cabinets, opening and closing as he got a glass for water. Then, on a Wednesday, the 14th of January, the tone changed. I pulled up the file from the living room recorder. The timestamp was mid-afternoon. I heard the front door open and close. Footsteps. Brianna's. "Mom. In here. He's at the shop. Do not worry." "Good." Brianna's voice was low, conspiratorial. "I just came from Miles's office. It is done. The complete file is ready." "Finally," Gloria sounded relieved. "He says it's perfect. He found the legal reasoning to exclude her. Something about, I do not know, reimbursement in lieu of inheritance or prior asset gifting. Basically, he's framing all the work she did on the house as her choice to spend her inheritance early." Brianna laughed, a short, sharp sound. "It means she has already gotten everything she is ever going to get." "My brilliant son-in-law," Gloria's voice was warm, warmer than I had ever heard it. "I already updated my will. I signed it last week. It is all going to you, baby. Everything. A pause. What about Dad? Brianna asked. Does he suspect anything? Gloria scoffed. The sound was ugly. About what? He does not suspect a thing. He has not for years. We are just two strangers living in the same house. He is too busy playing shopkeeper with his bitter coffee and his broke customers. He is weak, Brianna, and he is in the way. Good. I do not want this to blow up before it is finalized. It will not. Just be nice to your sister. Let her finish the floors. Let her keep her cute little workshop. She can build herself a tiny little house out of scraps for all I care. We will have this. We will have this, Brianna echoed. Then they both laughed. It was a shared, intimate sound of victory. I did not move. I sat in the dark, the headphones pressing against my ears. My heart was not racing. It was slow, heavy. Each beat was a thud of cold iron. I reached for the mouse. I saved the audio clip. I isolated the conversation, trimming the silence before and after. I saved it as a new file. I named it snow01.wave. I made 3 copies, one for the external drive, one for the cloud, one for the USB. Then I did my cross-check. I opened the email files I had stolen from Gloria's laptop. I found the chain with Miles. I looked at his calendar, which he had foolishly shared with Gloria so she could book appointments. There it was, Wednesday, January 14th, 3:00 p.m. Meeting G, Ramirez finalize estate docs. The audio file was time-stamped at 4:15 p.m. Brianna had driven straight from the lawyer's office to my father's house to celebrate. The reliability of the evidence was 100%. The email thread provided the intent. The audio file provided the confirmation. I was not finished. I had 2 more days of audio to review. I skipped ahead to Friday. The jewelry box recorder. The audio was clear. Gloria was in her bedroom. I heard the clink of earrings. She was getting ready to go out. Her phone rang. Hello? Her voice was low, musical. Darren? Yes, it's me. A pause. She laughed. I know. I miss you too. No, not the house. Not here. It is too risky. Yes, the usual place. The Crestview Motel. Out on the highway. What room 214 got it? This afternoon, 3:00. Arthur thinks I'm at the salon. Of course. I will bring the Northwind paperwork. We need to move the next amount before the end of the month. She hung up. Crestview Motel. Room 214. Friday, 3 p.m. She was not just stealing. She was actively meeting her lover. In a cheap motel. To coordinate the theft of my father's money. The nest egg. The phrase, dealing with Arthur, echoed in my head. This had gone far beyond a family dispute over an inheritance. This was dangerous. This was a conspiracy to defraud. And it was attached to an affair with a man who was my father's friend. Gloria and Darren were a team. I needed to break that team. My plan had to accelerate. I spent the next hour online. I found Darren Hale's address. A nice house in the next suburb over. I found his wife's name, Elise Hale. A public-facing social media profile. Photos of their kids. Fundraisers. A happy life. Elise was the weak flank. She was the one who did not know she was in a war. On Saturday morning, I put my plan into action. I drove to a 24-hour print shop in a different part of the city. I wore a hat and paid in cash. I printed the most incriminating emails between Gloria and Darren. The Our Future chain. The He is a fool messages. The nest egg plans. I also printed the $20,000 bank transfer confirmation to Northwind Shared LLC. I put them all in a plain manila envelope. No note, no explanation. The documents spoke for themselves. I drove to a post office near the airport and mailed the package to Elise Hale. My next stop was my bank. I went to the vault. I rented a medium-sized safe deposit box. I signed the paperwork. The bank manager, who knew me from my business accounts, smiled politely. I was taken into the small, private room. I placed the second copy of my main USB drive, the one containing everything, into the cold metal box. I also placed a set of the printed-out invoices for the $57,480, a hard copy backup. I locked the box. handed it back to the attendant. The evidence was now secure. It was off-site. It was safe from fire, theft, or deletion. It was waiting. That night, I sat at my desk. The audio recorders were still active. The final phase of the flooring was complete. The house was, for all intents and purposes, finished. The time for listening was over. The time for acting was here. I opened a new blank document on my secure drive. I typed a simple checklist: 1 lien, 2 disclosure, 3 exit. It was not a family matter anymore. It was a tactical plan, and I was ready to execute. I did not go to a big glass tower law firm. I did not want a man like Miles, all polished surfaces and hidden rot. I needed a specialist. I needed someone who spoke the language of 2x4s and concrete. Someone who understood the specific frustrations of a contractor. Her name was Nadia Brooks. Her office was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building downtown, just above a popular deli. The smell of curing meats and fresh coffee hung in the hallway. There was no marble lobby, just a solid oak door with her name on it and a small, neat reception area. Nadia was in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense blazer. She did not waste time on small talk. "You said on the phone it was a non-payment issue on a residential remodel," she said, gesturing for me to sit, "and that it was complicated." "It is," I said. "The property is my parents' house. The contractor is my company, and the amount is $57,480. Nadia's expression did not change. She just folded her hands on her desk. "Start at the beginning and show me the documents." I took out the external hard drive, the one that was a perfect clone of my evidence folder. I have every invoice, every material receipt from the supply houses, every check written to a subcontractor, every payroll record for my crew. I also have pre-construction photos, progression photos, and final, completed photos for every phase of the work. I plugged the drive into her monitor. For 20 minutes, the only sound in the office was the click of her mouse. She navigated my file structure with an efficiency I respected. She saw the receipts for the roofing shingles. She saw the invoices for the custom maple cabinets. She cross-referenced the dates on the plumbing subcontractor's bills with my bank transfers. She clicked on the Photos subfolder. She saw the before shot of the master bathroom, a cramped, dated space. She saw the during shots, the walls opened up, the old, leaking pipes exposed. She saw the after shot, the floor-to-ceiling Italian tile, the frameless glass shower, the heated floors. "Your work is impeccable," she said, finally turning back to me. "And your bookkeeping is better. The value has been provided. The improvement to the asset is undeniable." She leaned back. "Here is the vulnerability. As I see it, you have no signed contract, no formal loan agreement. You operated on a verbal understanding. In family matters, this is common, and it is commonly disastrous." My stomach tightened. "So I am out the money. It is my word against theirs." "No," Nadia said, holding up a finger. "You are not. Your actions are your contract. You are a licensed contractor. You performed work. They accepted that work. They are living in that work. The law provides a specific, powerful remedy for this exact situation. It is called a mechanic's lien." I nodded. "I have heard of it." "It is the most powerful tool a builder has," she explained, her tone shifting from neutral analyst to legal strategist. "It is not a request. Emma, it is not a polite letter asking for payment. It is a legal claim, an encumbrance. Think of it as a financial boot we are placing on the property's title. It is a cloud." She ticked off the points on her fingers. "Once that lien is officially filed, the owners, your parents, cannot sell the house. They cannot refinance it. They cannot get a home equity line of credit," and she paused, looking at me intently. "It critically disrupts any attempt to transfer the property, such as finalizing a new will or moving the asset into a trust." That was it. That was the kill shot. Miles's entire plan to finalize the estate and cut Emma out depended on a clean title. This lien would be a $57,000 bomb dropped directly onto his paperwork. We have 90 days from your last day of furnishing labor and materials, Nadia said, glancing at a calendar. The flooring was finished last week. We are in week 1. We act now. She turned to her monitor. The filing is a procedural document, but it must be perfect. One mistake in the legal description and it can be invalidated. We need 5 things. She listed them. 1. The affidavit of work. That is your sworn, notarized statement detailing the labor you performed and the materials you provided. 2. The legal description of the property. Not the street address, the full plat and parcel number from the county assessor's office. 3. The exact amount owed, $57,480. 4. The first and last dates you furnished work. 5. The names of the legal owners, Arthur and Gloria Ramirez. She was already typing. My paralegal will pull the property's legal description right now. I will draft the affidavit. You will sign it here, in front of our notary, before you leave. Where does it go? I asked. It is filed with the Riverton County Recorder of Deeds. It is a public filing. It becomes a permanent record attached to that parcel, for anyone in the world to see. We will get a stamped receipt and a document number the same day. And they just find out when their loan is denied. No, Nadia said, her expression hardening. We tell them, immediately after filing, my office will send a formal notice of lien to the owners of record, Arthur and Gloria, at the property address. It will be sent via certified mail. Return receipt requested. They will have to sign for it. The image of my mother, in her new kitchen, signing for a legal document that accused her of non-payment, was vivid. Simultaneously, Nadia continued, I recommend we send a demand letter. It is a separate document, but part of the same packet. It states that the lien has been filed, and it formally demands payment in full within 10 business days. It will also state that if they fail to pay, we will immediately initiate a lawsuit to foreclose on the lien. Foreclose. The word tasted like acid. It means we sue to have the property sold at auction to satisfy the debt. As the primary lien holder, you would be paid first from the proceeds. I do not want the house, I said, a wave of nausea hitting me. Of course you do not, Nadia said, her voice softening slightly. The foreclosure suit is the legal leverage. It is the big, heavy tool we use to force them to the negotiating table. They cannot ignore a foreclosure suit. It forces a response. They will have to hire a lawyer. They will have to answer the claim. It is how we get you paid. I nodded, my mind processing the strategy. There is something else, I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the slim metallic USB drive. This is not just about the money. I need you to understand the context. They are not just forgetful. This is an active, documented plan to defraud me. I told her everything, the ladder, the Christmas Eve conversation. Loser, just until she pays. Then we are done. They are planning to disinherit me, I said, my voice low and steady. They are using the remodel, which I paid for, as the legal justification. My brother-in-law, Miles Proctor, is their attorney. That is a massive conflict of interest, Nadia muttered, writing his name down. It is worse. I told her about the 2 a.m. data pull, the affair with Darren Hale, the Northwind shared account. The stolen $20,000. I slid the USB drive across the polished desk. On here is an audio file. I named it snow01.wave. It is a recording of my mother and sister discussing the plan to cut me out of the will. Using the remodel as the excuse, it also contains the email chains, the one with Miles, planning the inheritance fraud, and the one with Darren, planning the fresh start. Nadia looked at the drive, then at me. Emma, this audio, its admissibility in court is highly questionable. It could be seen as illegally obtained. I know, I cut her off. I do not care if it is admissible. It is not for the judge. It is for them. When they get this demand letter, their first defense will be to call me a bitter, ungrateful daughter. They will try to paint me as crazy. They will lie. My voice was cold. I want to attach a full, typed transcript of Snow01. And the most incriminating emails with Miles as Exhibit A and Exhibit B to the demand letter. Not as slander. Not as blackmail, as context. As the legal justification for why I am taking this immediate and aggressive step. It explains why this negotiation is happening through lawyers and not over dinner. It is not an emotional outburst. It is a calculated response to a documented, multi-year conspiracy. Nadia was silent for a full minute. A slow, thin smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a strategist who had just been handed the perfect weapon. That, she said, is an incredibly aggressive move, and a brilliant one. It preempts their entire defense. It shows them we have all the cards. They will not know what else we have. That is the goal, I said. And one more thing, the bank. You mentioned they could not refinance. I want to notify their bank now. An escrow alert. Nadia nodded, already typing. Smart? We can send a courtesy copy of the filed lien and the demand letter directly to the mortgage holder listed on the property record. It will immediately freeze any pending applications for refinancing or home equity loans. It cuts off their access to the house's new, inflated value. They were planning to use that new appraisal against me, I said. I want that value locked down. This will do it, she confirmed. This package will force them to react. Gloria, Brianna, and Miles. They will panic. And when people panic, they make mistakes. They will try to move money. They will create new lies. They will expose themselves. My hands were clenched on my knees. I forced them to relax. There is one final condition. My father, Arthur. He is a co-owner, Nadia said, her voice practical again. He is on the hook, legally. He is just as liable for the debt as she is. He is also a victim, I stated. He does not know about any of this, not the affair, not the inheritance plan, not the stolen $20,000. He is being played, just as I was. Nadia looked at me, waiting. How do you want to handle that? The certified letter will go to both of them. He will see the exhibits. He has to. It is the only way he will see the truth. But I want a separate path for him. The demand letter. It will name Gloria and Miles as the chief conspirators. The exhibits will show him why. But I want a provision, a way for him to settle this, separate from her, a way for him to align with the truth. Nadia thought for a moment. We can structure it that way. We can make the settlement offer conditional, based on cooperation. We can also provide a separate, private disclosure path for his own counsel, should he choose to retain one, which, after reading this, he absolutely will. Good, I said. I stood up. I am not trying to destroy him. I am trying to give him the facts. He will be collateral damage, but he does not have to be a casualty. Nadia stood with me. All right, Emma, I have the strategy. She looked at the USB drive, then at the stack of invoices. This is not a family drama anymore. This is a debt collection and a potential fraud investigation. I will have the lien affidavit ready for you to sign in 1 hour. I signed the paperwork. I paid her retainer from my business account. The next morning, Monday, the 26th of January, at 9:15 a.m., Nadia's paralegal walked into the Riverton County Recorder of Deeds and filed the lien. We had the official stamp and document number by 9:45 a.m. At 10 o'clock a.m., 2 identical, thick packets were sent via certified mail. Return receipt requested. One was addressed to Arthur Ramirez, the other to Gloria Ramirez. The mechanism was engaged. The fuse was lit. All I had to do now was wait for the sound of them signing for the delivery. Brianna's birthday was the last weekend in January. My flooring crew had finished their final walkthrough 2 days prior. The house was, by all accounts, complete. Gloria had insisted on hosting the party at the newly renovated house. It was not really a party for Brianna. It was a victory lap for Gloria. It was her moment to show off the quartz countertops, the gleaming hardwood, and the spa-like master bathroom to her circle. I received the invitation via a group text. Saturday at 7, do not be late. Emma. And please, try to wear something nice. I arrived at exactly 7 o'clock. The house was blazing with light. Every new fixture I had installed turned up to its maximum brightness. Cars lined the street. I could hear the murmur of conversation and the clink of glasses from the driveway. I was not wearing my work boots. I was wearing a tailored black pantsuit and a simple silk shell. My hair was pulled back. My hands were clean. I was wearing the flat, practical shoes I used for site meetings with architectural clients. When Gloria opened the door, she actually stared. She was draped in a deep red dress, a heavy gold necklace at her throat. She looked past me, as if expecting someone else. Emma, you are on time, and you look clean. Happy birthday, Brianna, I said, handing my sister the gift bag I was carrying. It held an expensive, neutral-toned cashmere throw, a perfect, impersonal gift. Oh, thanks, Brianna said, barely looking at it before setting it on a pile of other brightly wrapped boxes. She, too, was in red. They looked like a matching set. The house was full. Miles was playing the proud host, pouring red wine into oversized glasses. My father, Arthur, looked slightly lost, circulating with a tray of appetizers from the new kitchen. He smiled when he saw me. A brief, genuine moment of warmth. Emma, it is good to see you. The house looks incredible, does not it? Your mother is very pleased. It is a house, Dad, I said. We moved to the dining room. The new table, which I had not paid for but which sat squarely on the floor I had, was set for 12 when everyone began to sit. I did not take my usual spot, the one halfway down, near the kitchen, the spot for the helper. I walked to the head of the table. It was the seat where my father always sat. He was still in the kitchen. Miles, who had been about to sit there, paused. Emma, Gloria said, her voice tight. That is Miles's seat. No, I said, pulling the chair out. It is Dad's seat, but tonight I am sitting here. I sat. The room went quiet. Brianna looked at Miles. Miles looked at Gloria. My father walked in, saw the seating arrangement, and while ever the conflict avoider, simply took a chair on the side. The tension was immediate. A cold front had moved into the room. Dinner was served. It was catered. Gloria and Brianna held court, talking about the remodel, about Brianna's plans for a promotion, about a potential vacation. I ate quietly. I observed. I listened to the sound of my new dishwasher humming in the kitchen, to the solid, silent floor under my feet. Finally, the plates were cleared. Miles stood up, his wineglass high. A toast, he said, beaming at his wife, to the birthday girl, the smartest, most beautiful woman I know, to our future, and to a year of profitable new ventures. Happy birthday, Brianna. There was applause. Brianna kissed him. Gloria stood next. To my beautiful daughter, I am so proud of the woman you have become. You know what you want, and you get it. You are strong. You are my legacy. Happy birthday, darling. There was more applause. Then I lifted my glass. The table went silent again. All eyes turned to me. I would also like to make a toast, I said, my voice clear and level. It carried easily across the new, open-concept room. Gloria's smile tightened. To family, I said, lifting the glass. And to honesty, because you cannot have one without the other. I looked directly at Gloria. Her eyes flickered. She did not drink. I took a sip of water and set the glass down. Speaking of honesty, I said, Brianna, your gift. The cashmere was nice, but I also got you something else. Emma, do not be weird, Brianna snapped, her good mood evaporating. I am not being weird. I am being clear. I reached down to the bag at my feet. I did not pull out a box. I pulled out my company tablet. In fact, I said, it is a presentation. For everyone. I stood up and walked to the new 65-inch television I had mounted on the living room wall, visible from the entire dining table. "Emma, sit down," Miles said, his voice hard. "This is inappropriate. Today is Brianna's day." "You are right, Miles, and this presentation is all about Brianna, and you, and Mom." I tapped the screen of my tablet. "You know, when I installed this smart TV, I linked it to the house's new network. It is very easy to connect." I swiped my finger. The screen on the TV flickered, changing from a generic screensaver to a mirror image of my tablet's desktop. It showed a single, large audio file icon. The file was titled Snow01. Wave. "What is this?" Arthur asked, squinting at the screen. "This," I said, "is a recording from the living room, dated January 14th, just a few weeks ago." Gloria's face went white. She knew. She did not know how I had it, but she knew what it was. "Emma, you turn that off right now," she commanded. "This is sick." "I do not think I will." I hit play. My own headphones had been noise-canceling. The new soundbar I had installed under the TV was theater quality. The voices were crystal clear. Brianna's voice audio. "I just came from Miles's office. It is done. The complete file is ready." Gloria's voice audio. Finally, Brianna's voice audio. "He found the legal reasoning to exclude her. Prior asset gifting." Basically, he's framing all the work she did on the house as her choice to spend her inheritance early. Gloria's voice audio. "My brilliant son-in-law. I already updated my will. I signed it last week. It is all going to you. Baby, everything." I watched the room. Brianna's wineglass was frozen halfway to her lips. Miles was staring at the screen, his mouth open. Brianna's voice audio. "What about Dad? Does he suspect anything?" Gloria's voice audio. "About what he does not suspect a thing. We are just two strangers living in the same house. He is weak, Brianna, and he is in the way." Brianna's voice audio. "Good. Let her keep her cute little workshop." Gloria's voice audio. "We will have this." The audio file ended with the sound of their shared, triumphant laughter. The silence that filled the room was deafening. Every guest was motionless. Arthur looked as though he had been struck. He had pushed his chair back from the table. "Gloria." "What is that? What does 'in the way' mean?" "Arthur, it is nothing," Gloria stammered, her hands visibly shaking. She has faked this." "It is? Is it faked?" I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Or is it just the beginning?" I swiped the screen. The audio file disappeared. An email inbox took its place. An email from Miles Proctor to Gloria Ramirez. I zoomed in on the text. "Let her finish everything. Get the final appraisal. Then we update the will. We can cite your contributions and his declining business sense." You. Miles was on his feet, his chair scraping loudly on the hardwood. He was pulling his phone from his pocket. "Looking for something." "Miles," I asked. I swiped the screen again. A bank transfer confirmation. "A transfer of $20,000, I announced to the room. "From your joint savings account, Dad, to an LLC I had never heard of, Northwind Shared." Arthur shook his head. I do not understand." "What is Northwind?" "A nest egg, Dad." I looked at Miles, who was furiously tapping at his phone. "I would not bother." "Miles," I said, "everything you see here is already backed up. It is on an encrypted cloud server, a local hard drive, and a third copy is sitting in a safe deposit box at a bank you do not have access to. The metadata has been preserved. Deleting your sent items will not save you from a bar association inquiry." He froze. His face was slick with sweat. "And now," I said, turning my gaze fully on my mother, "for the man behind Northwind." Gloria's eyes widened. This she had not expected. "You see, Dad," I said, "Mom has been planning a fresh start." I swiped the screen. A new email chain appeared. Sender D. Hale Investments. Darren Hale, I said, letting his name hang in the air. Arthur, who had been pale, suddenly flushed a deep, dark red. Darren, my friend Darren. Your friend Darren, I confirmed. I highlighted an email from Gloria. The Crestview Motel. Room 214. Friday afternoons, while you were at Maple Steam, Dad, trying to keep the shop afloat, Mom was meeting your friend to plan their new life. Gloria made a small, strangled sound. She is lying, Gloria shrieked, finding her voice. Arthur, she is a sick, jealous. She is lying. Am I? I swiped to the last email, the one from Gloria to Darren. I zoomed in, so the words filled the entire 65-inch screen. Once the house is appraised and the assets are transferred, then we just have to finalize the plan for dealing with Arthur. We have to be final. The room was absolutely, terrifyingly still. The other guests looked like they wanted to evaporate. Brianna was crying, silently, her face in her hands. Miles was staring at the floor. Defeated, Gloria was sheet white. My father stood up. He did not yell. He did not look at Gloria. He did not look at anyone but me. His hands were shaking, but his voice was like gravel. It was a voice I had never heard. Emma. Yes, Dad. I want to see everything. He walked around the table, picked up my tablet, and looked at the screen. Show me. Show me all of it. Now. I did not move. I just watched as my father, for the first time in his life, began to read the truth. The party was over. The silence that remained was cold, heavy, and suffocating. This was not the end. It was just the end of the lies. Arthur stood at the head of the table, the tablet gripped in his white-knuckled hand, his eyes scanning the words, dealing with Arthur, we have to be final. The silence in the room was a physical weight. The guests, friends of Gloria and Brianna, looked like they had just witnessed a fatal accident. One woman, her fork still in her hand, was staring, her mouth open. A man muttered, standing up abruptly. We really must be going. Thank you, Gloria. It was lovely. It was a dam breaking. In a desperate, collective rush, the guests fled. They grabbed coats from the rack, not bothering with goodbyes, their shoes scraping on the new hardwood floor as they hurried for the exit, escaping the blast radius. Arthur did not look up. He did not speak. He just walked, the tablet still in his hand, to the new coat closet by the door. He took his own heavy winter coat from a hook. Arthur, Gloria whispered, her voice a dry rasp. Arthur, do not be ridiculous. She is lying. He did not look at her. He pulled on his coat, his movements stiff and automatic. He walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped out into the freezing January night. The door closed behind him. The sound was not a slam. It was a quiet, heavy, final click, the sound of a lock engaging. Brianna and Miles were next. It was not a departure. It was a panicked evacuation. This is your fault, Brianna shrieked at me, her face blotchy and ruined by tears. You did this. Come on, Bree, Miles urged, his voice cracking. He was physically pulling her by the arm, his eyes wide and terrified, like an animal caught in a trap. He looked at me once, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, and then they were gone, stumbling out the door into the darkness. And then, silence. The house, which moments before had been full of laughter and light, was deathly still. It was just me and Gloria. She was still at the dining table, a half-eaten piece of catered dessert in front of her. She was staring at the blank, 65-inch screen, a modern black mirror reflecting the wreckage of the room. She was sitting completely, perfectly still. She had not moved. I walked back to the dining table, my practical shoes making no sound. I reached into the pocket of my blazer. I pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope. It was the one Nadia had sent, the certified mail packet, addressed to Gloria Ramirez, which had been returned to my lawyer's office, marked refused. I tossed it onto the table. It landed with a heavy thud next to her wine glass. "That is the official notice of lien," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the oversized room. $57,480. A copy of the transcript you just heard is inside, along with the emails, in case you want to read them again. My lawyer's name is Nadia Brooks. Her business card is in there, too. Gloria flinched, as if the envelope were a snake. She still did not look at me. "You," she whispered, her voice choked. "You ungrateful monster, after everything I did for you." "No, Mom," I said, zipping my coat. "After everything I did for you." I turned and walked out of the house I had rebuilt. I closed the door quietly, leaving her alone in the cold. Perfect, empty shell. The fallout was immediate. My phone began to light up before I had even driven back to my own apartment. The first text message from Gloria was pure, vitriolic rage. "You will not get a cent. You are a thief. You are trying to steal your father's house. Miles will destroy you. You are dead to me." I read it at a stoplight. I did not reply. An hour later, the tone shifted to desperate pleading. "Emma, please, you have misunderstood everything. This is a terrible mistake. You are tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding. Please call me. We can fix this. Just call your mother." I did not reply. By the next morning, it was abject panic. "He will not answer his phone. Arthur will not answer me. Where is he? What did you do, Emma? Please, you cannot do this to me. I will pay you back. We can work it out." I screenshotted the texts and forwarded them to Nadia Brooks. Then came Brianna. Her text was different, weaker. I am so sorry. I did not know about Mom and that guy. I swear. I got caught up. I am so sorry. Please, do not let this get out. It will ruin Miles. It will ruin me. Listen, Miles said he can help. He can fix this for all of us. He will even represent you, for free. We can make the lien go away and just fix this as a family. The sheer, staggering audacity of it almost made me laugh. Offering me the services of the very lawyer who had orchestrated my disinheritance. I screenshotted the text. I forwarded it to Nadia with a one-word message, handle. The only message that mattered came on Monday morning. A single text from my father. "Emma, I am at a lawyer's office. I need the full evidence package you showed me, all of it, for the divorce proceedings." I did not text him back. I opened my secure cloud drive, the one containing every file, every audio clip, every email. I created a secure, one-time access link and emailed it directly to the divorce attorney he had named. The war had begun. I got a call from Nadia 3 days later. "Well," she said, her voice crisp and satisfied. "The hornet's nest has been well and truly kicked. What is the blowback?" First, the easy part. Elise Hale. Your manila envelope did its job. She filed for an emergency divorce from Darren Hale last Friday, citing adultery and fraudulent conveyance of assets. She used your documents to get an immediate court order freezing all his assets, including the Northwind shared account. That $20,000 is now locked in litigation. Your mother's nest egg is officially cooked. Good, I said. What about our front? The bank called me this morning, the one that holds your parents' mortgage. As you predicted, Gloria and Miles were already in the process of a cash-out refinance. They were trying to pull all the new equity from your remodel, equity you paid for, out of the house. And your lien stopped them dead. It landed in the county recorder's office just 48 hours before their closing. The bank has officially frozen the application. All their assets are locked. Nadia paused. I could hear her shuffling papers. Which brings me to the first twist. This is not good, but it is very interesting. Gloria was not just planning to refinance. She had already taken out a secret bridge loan. My blood went cold. What how? It is a high-interest, short-term loan, usually used to bridge the gap between buying a new house and selling an old one, but it seems she used it to pull cash out before the refinance was even approved. based on the expected new appraisal value. She was trying to drain the asset before Miles even filed the new will. She was planning to run. Emma. How much? $25,000. She was already in default, which is what triggered the bank to look closer. Your lien, by freezing the refinance, has now blocked her only means of paying back the bridge loan. She is trapped. So, I said, processing this. She is cornered. She is cornered, Nadia agreed. Which brings me to twist number 2, Miles Proctor. I have been reviewing the email chains you pulled. He is not just unethical, Emma. He is an idiot. He put his entire plan in writing. He advised Gloria, his mother-in-law, on how to disinherit you, his sister-in-law, while also acting as the preparing attorney for the estate. The conflict of interest is staggering. He explicitly advised her to wait for you to finish the work, to increase the value, before filing. That is textbook fraud. What can we do with it? I am filing a formal complaint with the State Bar Association. With this evidence, he will be lucky to keep his license. His brilliant legal reasoning is what will get him disbarred, and his offer to represent you for free. That is witness tampering. I took a deep breath. Miles was neutralized. Now, Nadia said, her voice dropping. For the real bomb, twist number 3, I did a deep dive. I pulled the original deed of trust on the house, from when your parents first bought it 30 years ago. And Arthur must have had a very sharp, very cynical lawyer. There is an old, rarely used clause in the deed. A financial malfeasance provision. Speak English. Nadia. It is a cheater's clause. Emma. It explicitly states that if either partner is found to have committed proven financial fraud or willful misdirection of marital assets against the other partner or their direct issue, that is you. That partner's rights of survivorship and priority claim to the asset are rendered subordinate. I was silent. Do you understand what that means? Nadia asked. It means if your father's divorce lawyer can prove, using your evidence, that Gloria committed fraud, she does not just lose the argument, she loses her entire 50% stake in the house. Arthur gets it all. The house, the asset she had stolen, lied, and cheated for. She was about to lose it completely. The house had become a legal war zone. Nadia, I said, my mind racing. We have them. We can destroy them. We can take the house. Everything. Yes, we can, she said quietly. So, what is the new demand? I thought about it. I thought about the humiliation, the years of being the loser, the muddy daughter. I thought about the dealing with Arthur email. Then I thought about my workshop, about the clean lines of a blueprint, about the contract. My position has not changed, I said. This is not personal. It is a business transaction that went bad. Emma. My demand is the same as it was a week ago. I am not here to take the house. I am not here to profit from their crimes. I am here to be paid for the work I did. I leaned forward on my desk. The demand remains repayment in full, $57,480, plus interest, plus Nadia's legal fees. That is the price to make the lien go away. And if they cannot pay, Gloria is broke. The bank accounts are frozen. Then we proceed with the foreclosure. The court can sell the house at auction. The lien gets paid first. I get my money. Arthur, as the sole remaining claimant thanks to that clause, gets the rest. The principle is the same. I am not a victim. I am a creditor, and I am here to collect. The explosion of that night was followed by a profound, structural silence. The war was being waged, but it was a cold war, fought by lawyers and process servers. The quiet that descended on my life was vast, and I filled it, quickly and completely, with the only thing that had ever made sense to me, the work. I poured my energy back into Brighthammer construction. It was not just an escape, it was a reclamation. I was no longer funding my mother's fantasies or my sister's envy. I was building my own. My focus became razor sharp. I pursued and won a major contract for a new 6-unit townhouse development on the north side of Riverton. This was not a remodel. This was new construction. From the footings to the roof ridge, It was the biggest project my company had ever landed, and it required me to scale up. I went to the bank, not for a bridge loan, but for a business expansion loan, secured by my company's assets and my perfect payment history. It was approved in 2 days. With it, I bought the industrial-grade cabinet maker's table saw I had coveted for 3 years. I invested in new, safer scaffolding, and most importantly, I hired 2 new project managers, Mark and Sarah. They were both older, more experienced, and had impeccable references. They took the daily supervision of 2 of my other sites off my plate, freeing me to focus on the townhouse project and the expanding legal battle. My workshop, once just my cute little workshop, was now a humming, profitable, growing enterprise. I also bought a house. It was the antithesis of the oversized, hollow colonial I had just finished. It was a small bungalow, barely 1,000 square feet, built in the 1940s on a quiet, dead-end street. It had a wide front porch, original oak floors, and a small, private backyard that was mostly overgrown weeds. It needed work. The plaster was cracked, the plumbing was old, and the kitchen was a time capsule. I bought it in cash with the money I had set aside before the remodel, the money I had originally, foolishly, intended to give my parents as an anniversary gift. I spent my weekends there. I did not gut it. I healed it. I patched the plaster. I sanded the floors by hand, letting the original wood breathe. I tore out the old kitchen cabinets and, in my workshop, began to slowly build new ones, just for me. The small spare bedroom became my office, my drafting table set against a window that looked out onto the oak trees. It was the first space in my 35 years of life that felt truly, entirely my own. My relationship with my father entered a strange, new, and fragile phase. He had moved into the small apartment above Maple Steam. The divorce was proceeding, and his lawyer, funded by a loan against the coffee shop, was aggressively using the financial malfeasance clause. We created a new ritual. On the 1st of every month, at exactly noon, I would walk into Maple Steam. He would have a latte waiting for me. We would sit at the counter, the same counter he had stood behind for 20 years. We never, not once, spoke about the lawsuit. We did not speak of Gloria or Brianna. We did not mention Darren Hale or the $20,000. The boundaries were absolute. We spoke about our work. He would tell me about a new shipment of beans from Ethiopia, explaining the roasting process. I would unroll a small set of blueprints on the counter, and I would show him the structural challenges of the townhouse project, how I was handling a complex, load-bearing wall. During our lunch in March, he put his hand over mine on the counter. His hand was rough, stained dark from the coffee. "You are a good builder, Emma," he said, his voice thick. He cleared his throat. "You always were." It was all he said. It was more than enough. While I built, Nadia Brooks applied pressure. The legal front was my second project, and I ran it with the same ruthless efficiency. The time for emotional confrontation was over. This was a tactical maneuver. Nadia sent out the first official settlement offer. As we had planned, the terms were ice cold. Pay the full $57,480, plus interest, calculated from the date of the lien, plus all my accrued legal fees. She offered them one concession a payment plan, structured over 18 months. The final sentence was the hammer. Should you refuse this offer, or miss a single payment, we will immediately move to petition the court for a foreclosure and public auction of the property. The response was, predictably, from Miles. He was still, somehow, acting as Gloria's attorney. His letter was a masterwork of misplaced arrogance. It was 4 pages of legalistic threats. He called my lien frivolous and vexatious. He called my invoices entirely unsubstantiated. He threatened a massive countersuit for defamation, slander, and invasion of privacy, clearly referencing the audio file. He accused me of inflicting severe emotional distress on my ailing mother. He demanded I withdraw the lien within 48 hours, or he would seek immediate and punitive damages. I forwarded the email to Nadia. Her reply came back in under 30 minutes. "He is an idiot. He just put his threats in writing. Watch this. Nadia's response was not a 4-page tirade, it was 3 paragraphs. She replied not just to Miles, but she CC'd Gloria, Brianna, and my father's divorce attorney. Mr. Proctor, her letter began. We find your claims entirely without merit. We will not be withdrawing the lien. Furthermore, we find your decision to represent your family in a matter where you are a documented co-conspirator to be a gross, unethical, and sanctionable violation of your professional duty. Attached as Appendix A, please find the full transcript of your email communications with Ms. Gloria Ramirez regarding the prior asset gifting strategy, which we believe constitutes conspiracy to commit fraud. Attached as Appendix B, please find the text message you sent to my client offering free representation, which we identify as potential witness tampering. We look forward to seeing you at the foreclosure hearing. Nadia and I never spoke about what happened next, but 2 days later, a small notice appeared in the local legal journal. The State Bar Association had opened a formal ethics investigation into Miles Proctor. Based on an anonymous filing, his countersuit vanished. His name disappeared from all future legal correspondence. He was winded. The legal pressure, however, created a new problem. My phone started ringing in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, 4:15, always from a blocked. No caller ID number. The first time. I answered, and there was only the sound of someone breathing. The second time, I heard a muffled, choked-off sob that sounded terrifyingly like my mother, before the line clicked dead. After the 5th call in 2 nights, I stopped answering. I took my phone records to the police, filed a formal report for harassment, and forwarded the report number to Nadia. She used it to file for an emergency temporary restraining order against Gloria. The calls stopped. The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected, crisp, cream-colored envelope that arrived at my workshop. It was from Elise Hale. Her note was brief, written in sharp, angry-looking ink. Ms. Ramirez, I do not know you, and I do not know your family, but the documents you sent me were the truth I needed. Thank you for opening my eyes. I will not be a fool any longer. Tucked inside was a courtesy copy of her own court filing. It was a petition for an emergency divorce, alimony, and a 50% division of all assets, including a full claim on the Northwind Shared LLC. She was going to claw back every single penny he and Gloria had stolen. Gloria, meanwhile, was in a full, uncontrolled freefall. My father's lawyer had successfully used the financial malfeasance clause, combined with my harassment report, to get an immediate court order. Gloria was temporarily removed from the house while the divorce proceeded. The asset she had schemed for was now a locked box she could not enter. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her bridge loan was in default. Her fresh start with Darren was a legal nightmare. She was forced to rent a small, 1-bedroom apartment in a rundown complex out by the highway. Her social media, once a daily flood of new handbags, fancy lunches, and declarations of family bliss, went completely, totally silent. A part of me, the old Emma, waited for the feeling of triumph, the gotcha, the satisfaction of seeing her brought low. It never came. I felt no glee. I felt no rage. I felt calm. I was disciplined. I did not drive by her new, sad apartment. I did not check her social media profiles. Her collapse was a separate event. It was a structural failure caused by her own flawed design. It had nothing to do with me. I was too busy stripping wallpaper in my new kitchen. My father, on the other hand, was slowly beginning to stand up. He had started therapy. I knew only because his lawyer had mentioned it to Nadia as part of the proceedings. One afternoon in late February, driving back from a site, I passed Maple Steam. A new hand-painted sign was taped in the window. "We are reopening," it read, "with our original Christmas menu, because it is never too late for a fresh start." He was taking back the holiday. He was rebuilding, too. That night, I sat at my drafting table in my quiet house. The moonlight was bright on the snow in the backyard. I was organizing my week. On my desk, I had 3 files: The first was labeled Projects. It held the blueprints for the townhouses. The second was labeled Illegal. It held Nadia's latest update on the foreclosure hearing. The third was labeled Future. It held the business plan for a custom woodworking shop I wanted to add to Brighthammer. There was no file labeled Family. That file, that project, was closed. The Riverton County Courthouse was not a grand hall of justice. It was a 1970s brick box that smelled of stale coffee and industrial-grade pine cleaner. The pre-trial mediation was held in a windowless conference room on the 4th floor. It was painted a pale, sickly beige. I sat on one side of the long, polished table with Nadia Brooks. My files were stacked neatly in front of me, one copy for me, one for the mediator. On the other side of the table was the enemy. Gloria sat in the middle, rigid, her face a mask of powdered-over rage. She was wearing an expensive suit I did not recognize, clearly bought for this performance. Beside her was Miles. He looked terrible. He was pale, sweating visibly at the temples, and his hands fumbled with a cheap-looking briefcase. The state bar investigation had clearly taken its toll. He was no longer the brilliant, arrogant son-in-law. He was a cornered, desperate man. Brianna sat next to him, silent, her eyes red and puffy, staring at the wood grain of the table. At the far end, deliberately separate, sat my father. He was not looking at Gloria. He was represented by his own lawyer, a sharp, older woman named Ms. Alvarez, who had her own neat stack of files. The mediator, Mr. Chen, a semi-retired judge with a face that had seen everything, sat at the head of the table. He sighed, adjusting his glasses. "Well," he said, his voice flat. "This is a family matter, which means it is going to be messy. Let's try to make it not. Ms. Brooks, you filed the initial claim. The floor is yours. Let's start with the lien." He picked up the thick packet Nadia had submitted. "I have reviewed the filing, on its face," he said, peering over his glasses at Miles. "It is textbook. It is procedurally perfect. The affidavits are notarized. The invoices are itemized. The work is documented, and it was filed well within the statutory 90-day window. It is as solid a mechanic's lien as I have ever seen." Miles, foolishly, decided to speak. "Your Honor, or Mr. Mediator, sir, we move to have this entire lien dismissed. It is frivolous." "Frivolous," the mediator said, raising an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" "Mr. Proctor, the amount $57,480 is not a frivolous sum." "On the grounds of relation?" Miles stammered, shuffling his papers. It is a daughter doing work on her parents' house. It was a gift. It was an act of family love. This is a personal dispute, a shakedown, not a commercial one. She is abusing the process." The mediator stared at Miles for a long, uncomfortable moment. "Mr. Proctor, are you a family law attorney?" "No, sir. I am civil." "Then you should know that family love is not a recognized legal defense against a perfected lien. Do you have any actual legal basis to challenge the filing, any procedural error, any precedent suggesting a licensed contractor cannot file against a client, even if they share DNA? Because if you do not, I suggest we move past the shakedown argument and get to the facts." Miles's face flushed a dark, blotchy red. He sank back into his chair. "No, sir." "Excellent," the mediator said. "Ms. Brooks, let us proceed." Nadia was calm. She was organized. She was everything they were not. She did not open with accusations. She opened with work. "Mr. Chen," she said, her voice clear and professional, "this is not a family dispute. This is a simple case of non-payment for professional services rendered. My client, Brighthammer Construction, a licensed and bonded general contractor, was engaged to perform a full-scale remodel of the property at 425 Colonial Drive." She gestured to her file. "In this binder, you will find the complete project file. You will see the architectural blueprints for the new kitchen and master bath. You will see the before and after photographs, time-stamped, for every phase of the work. You will see the signed-off city permits for the new roof, the new HVAC system, and the new electrical panel. And you will see, tabbed and highlighted, every corresponding invoice, material receipt, and subcontractor check, totaling $57,480, all paid, in full, by my client. She pushed a separate, smaller binder toward him. You will also find a USB drive containing the file snow01.wave, along with a certified transcript. It is an audio recording that confirms the payment for this work was, in fact, my client's disinheritance. We are not here to debate the family drama. We are here to state, unequivocally, that this was a fraudulent arrangement from its inception. The mediator put on his glasses and began to read the transcript. The room was silent. I could hear Miles breathing, a quick, shallow sound. Mr. Chen's eyes scanned the page. Let her keep her cute little workshop. He read the line out loud, his voice dripping with distaste. He looked up, not at Gloria, but at Miles. Mr. Proctor, is this your legal advice? Prior asset gifting? It is creative. I am sure the state bar will find it equally fascinating. Gloria broke her silence. He does not know what he is talking about, she snapped, her voice high and thin. That recording is illegal. She bugged my house. I am the victim. The mediator looked at her. Ms. Ramirez, whether the recording is admissible in a criminal court is not my concern. We are in mediation, and it, along with these emails, he tapped another page, speaks directly to intent. It suggests you never intended to pay this debt. He flipped the page. And this, Northwind Shared LLC. This transfer of $20,000 from a joint marital account. This is very, very troubling. It looks a great deal like financial malfeasance. I am, in fact, obligated to refer this particular transaction to the District Attorney's Financial Crimes Unit, just so they can take a look. Gloria looked like she had been struck. Now, Mr. Chen said, turning his attention to my father. Mr. Ramirez, you are a co-owner of this property. You are equally named on this lien. What is your position? My father's lawyer, Ms. Alvarez, spoke first. My client's position is clear, sir. He was not aware of the prior asset gifting plan. He was not aware of the Northwind shared account. He was not aware of the dealing with Arthur plan until his daughter brought it to light. Then my father spoke. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. I am not here to fight the lien, he said, looking at the mediator. The work was done. The work is excellent. My daughter, Emma, is a professional. She did her job. She should be paid for her job. He turned, and for the first time, he looked directly at Gloria. His eyes were cold. I am here to see that the truth is respected. That is all. The finality of his statement settled on the room. Gloria's side had no allies, not even her victim. And then, the final hammer fell. There was a knock on the door. The mediator's assistant entered and handed him a note. He read it, and his eyebrows shot up. Well, he said, looking at Gloria and Miles. This complicates your position. What is it? Miles asked, his voice a croak. That was a message from Ms. Alvarez. She just received a call. The title insurance company for your property, the one that insures the deed against legal claims, has just issued a notice of withdrawal of policy. It seems that, based on the evidence provided in Mr. Ramirez's divorce proceedings specifically, the Northwind transfer, and the dealing with Arthur emails, they have determined there is a substantial risk of active, ongoing fraud associated with the property. They are pulling their coverage. Gloria did not understand. Brianna did. What? What does that mean? Brianna whispered, her voice trembling. It means, young lady, the mediator said, That your house is uninsurable. It means no bank will ever issue a mortgage or a loan against it. It means your primary asset is, as of this moment, financially toxic. It is a paperweight. It has zero value, because no one can ever legally buy it or sell it. That was the breaking point. Brianna stood up so fast her chair screeched on the floor. I need air, she gasped, and fled the room. Slamming the door behind her, Miles, looking panicked, shot up. Mr. Mediator, I request a 5-minute recess. I need to confer with the family. You have 2 minutes, Mr. Chen said. Miles hurried out of the room after his wife. Gloria sat alone, staring straight ahead. Her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. She was a statue of pure, impotent rage. Nadia leaned over to me. "That's it," she whispered. "The title insurance. That's a knockout. They have no moves left. They cannot pay us by refinancing. They cannot sell. They have nothing." When Miles and Brianna returned, the fight was gone. Brianna was pale, her face vacant. Miles looked like he had aged 10 years. He sat down and nodded. Once, to Nadia. Nadia stood up. "Mr. Chen, in the interest of resolving this today, my client is prepared to make a final, non-negotiable offer." She looked at Gloria, Miles, and Brianna. $65,000. That is the original $57,480, plus interest, plus our legal fees. A single, lump sum payment. You have 30 days to find the money, from a loan, from a friend, from selling your car. We do not care. Pay the $65,000, and Ms. Ramirez will sign the release, and the lien will be withdrawn. Gloria opened her mouth, her eyes full of venom. Before she could speak, Nadia cut her off. "This is not a negotiation. It is the offer. The alternative is that we proceed to a full, public foreclosure hearing. We will win. The court will order the house to be sold at auction. My client will be paid first, from the top. The banks will take their cut. Ms. Alvarez," she nodded to my father's lawyer, "will take her cut for Mr. Ramirez. And you," she looked at Gloria, "will be left with whatever pennies are left over, if any. The choice is yours. 65,000, or public ruin. You have 30 days. Silence. Long, heavy, suffocating silence. Gloria was shaking. Miles was staring at his empty legal pad. Brianna looked like she was going to be sick. The mediator looked at them. "Well," no one spoke. "Fine," Mr. Chen said, snapping his binder shut. "If you cannot reach an agreement today, I will set the trial date. We will see each other in court, April 15th, and I will remind you, Mr. Proctor, that in a foreclosure suit, the perfected mechanic's lien is almost always first in the order of payment priority. Good day." He stood up and left the room. I stood up. Nadia gathered our files. I had not said a single word for over an hour. I walked out of the beige conference room and into the hallway. I did not look back. The smell of the industrial pine cleaner was overpowering, but it smelled clean. It smelled like Christmas. I took a deep, steadying breath, standing tall before the final, inevitable collapse. It was Christmas Eve. Exactly 1 year later, the snow was falling in thick, quiet flakes, muffling the sounds of the city. I was on a ladder again, the cold seeping through my gloves. But I was not at the Colonial. I was downtown, outside Maple Steam. The old neon sign glowed, casting a warm red light on the falling snow. My father had asked me to hang lights. "Nothing fancy, Emma," he had said, his voice quiet. "Just warm." I was clipping the last string of simple, oversized white bulbs to the shop's awning. The light reflected on the clean plate glass window. Inside, I could see my father, wearing his favorite old cardigan, wiping down the chrome espresso machine, getting ready for the morning rush. The smell of roasting coffee and cinnamon drifted out into the cold night air. It was peaceful. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I pulled it out, balancing on the ladder. The caller ID was Nadia Brooks. Working on Christmas Eve. Nadia, I answered, my voice a small, visible cloud. They always wait until the last possible second, she said. Her voice was crisp, all business. I just got off the phone with Gloria's new attorney. Mr. Miles Proctor is, unsurprisingly, no longer on the case. And, I asked, clipping a final bulb, they have the money, or rather, Brianna has the money. It appears she was forced to take out a second mortgage on her own home. She is desperate to make this all go away. They are prepared to wire the full amount, $65,000, to my trust account tonight. My hand, the one holding the phone, tightened. The full amount, Nadia confirmed, which means they are terrified of the foreclosure hearing. But there is a condition. Of course there is a condition. I waited, silent, watching my father. They are demanding a perpetual confidentiality clause. A full, ironclad NDA. We cannot speak about the affair, the Northwind account, the inheritance plan, the bar complaint, anything. We take the $65,000, and we agree to be silent, forever. I looked through the window. My father was laughing with a customer who had stopped by just before closing. He looked lighter than I had seen him in 30 years. No, I said. Emma, I am legally obligated to advise you to think about this. Nadia said. $65,000 is... No, I said again, my voice as firm as the frozen ladder rung beneath my boot. This was never just about the money. The money is just the receipt for the work. This whole thing was about the truth. I will not be paid to participate in their lie. I will not be silenced. So, what is our counter-offer? Nadia asked. I could hear the smile in her voice. We will accept a limited, mutual non-disparagement agreement, I said, repeating the terms we had practiced. We will agree not to publicly disparage them on social media or in the press, provided they do the same. But we will not sign a confidentiality clause. We will not lie for them, and we will not, under any circumstances, agree to conceal the facts of their fraud from any legal or governing body. The truth must remain on the record. That is the only deal. Take it, or we will see them in court in April. I will convey your terms, Nadia said. I do not think they will fight it. They are cornered. They are more cornered than they know, I said. Did you see the wire from Elise Hale's lawyer? I did, Nadia said, her voice sharp with satisfaction. A beautiful move. The final twist had landed just 2 days ago. Elise Hale, Darren's now ex-wife, had not stopped with the divorce. She had hired a forensic accountant. He had discovered that Darren Hale had not just been hiding the $20,000 from Gloria, he had been hiding assets from the IRS for almost a decade. Elise had submitted the supplementary evidence to the court, and more importantly, to the federal government. Darren's fresh start was over. He was facing a full-blown criminal tax fraud investigation, Gloria's lover, her co-conspirator, and her only financial escape route. He was gone. He was radioactive. The other final twist was sitting in Nadia's inbox. The night after the disastrous mediation, I had received a private, panicked email from a burner account. It was from Brianna. It was not a true apology. It was a desperate, self-serving plea. Emma, I cannot lose my house. Miles is ruined. The bar is going to take his license. Please, I am attaching his private notes on the inheritance. He made me sign. He told me it was the only way to protect the family from your instability. I did not know what else to do. Please use this. Just get him, not me. Get him to stop. The attachment was the smoking gun. It was Miles's handwritten notes, scanned, detailing the prior asset gifting strategy, explicitly outlining how to use my work against me. Nadia had used it immediately. She had presented it privately to Miles's new lawyer. The terms were simple. Miles would sign a full statement withdrawing from all family legal matters. He would cease all contact with me and my father, and he would accept a formal reprimand from the state bar for his ethical violations. In exchange, Nadia would not submit this new evidence, which proved premeditation. To the bar's investigative committee. Miles had signed it within the hour. Gloria was alone. Brianna was financially ruined. Miles was professionally neutered. Nadia called back 20 minutes later. They accepted, she said simply. No NDA. The wire transfer is scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow. The next morning, I was on site at the new townhouse development, my hard hat on, reviewing a framing plan with my new project manager. My phone chimed. It was an email from Nadia's office, a single PDF attachment. It was a bank confirmation slip. Deposit, $65,000. Source Brianna L. Proctor. I looked at the number. It was just a number. It meant my company was healthy. It meant I could make payroll for the next 6 months without a single worry. By 10 a.m., Nadia had electronically filed the release and satisfaction of Lien with the Riverton County Recorder of Deeds. The cloud on the title was gone. My part in that house, my claim to it, my connection to it, it was officially, legally, and finally severed. I was free. The divorce was finalized a week later, with the title clean. The financial malfeasance clause was enacted. Arthur was awarded the house, the car, and the full contents of their joint accounts, minus the $20,000 Gloria had stolen. She was left with her personal belongings, her defaulted bridge loan, and her share of the massive credit card debt she had run up. My father did 2 things immediately. First, he sold the house. He sold the Colonial, that monument to my mother's ambition and my own stupidity, in less than a week. He took the proceeds and moved permanently into the apartment above Maple Steam. Second, he updated his will. He created a new entity, the Maple Trust. Everything he had the shop. The money from the house went into it. He made me the sole executor. The trust contained a new clause, one drafted by his own lawyer, an explicit, ironclad protection clause against any attempts to gain control through emotional manipulation, coercion, or undue influence by any family member, specifically naming Gloria and Brianna. He had learned. He offered me half the proceeds from the sale of the house, an early inheritance. I said no. That is your money, Dad, I told him over coffee. I do not want it. Instead, I took my $65,000, my company's perfect new balance sheet, and the contract for the townhouse development, and I went to my bank. I secured a commercial loan, a real one. I signed the papers and began construction on a new 3,000-square-foot woodworking addition to the Brighthammer workshop. We sat at the counter at Maple Steam a few days later. It was snowing again. The shop was warm. He was not drinking coffee. He had made us 2 mugs of hot cacao, the good kind, with real shaved chocolate. We watched the snow fall against the glass. I have been in therapy, he said quietly, not looking at me. For 6 months now. I nodded. I know. I missed so much. Emma, he said, his voice thick. I spent 30 years looking the other way. I saw the way she treated you, the way they both did, and I just hid in the shop. I let you be the strong one, because I was a coward. He turned to me, his eyes wet. I have missed so many years. Please, give me a chance to make up for some of them. To be your father. I looked at him. The soft, weak man I had always known was gone. In his place was someone quieter and stronger. He was not asking for forgiveness. He was asking for a new contract, based on the truth. I nodded. There were no tears. There were no hugs. It was just an agreement, an adult understanding. We drank our cacao and watched the snow. That night, I went back to the shop. I climbed the ladder one last time and clipped the final bulb to the awning. I walked to the outdoor socket, the extension cord heavy in my hand. I thought about that night on the porch, that one phrase that had started it all. Just until, a phrase that had been a deadline, a threat, the end of my usefulness. Now, it was just words. They were just words. They had no power. They floated away and dissolved, like breath in the cold winter air. I pushed the plug into the socket. The lights all came on at once. bright, warm, and steady. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I looked at the screen. It was a text from Gloria, the first one in months. "Emma, I know you hate me. I deserve it. But please, can we meet just one last time? For coffee?" I looked at the message. I thought about the years of manipulation, the lies, the theft. This Christmas was for people who tell the truth. I did not reply. I silenced the phone and put it back in my pocket. The next morning, I walked into my new office in my small, quiet bungalow. The sun was streaming in, making the old oak floors glow. I unrolled the blueprints for my next project, a library, custom shelving, from floor to ceiling. I picked up my pencil, sharpened it, and made the first mark. Each line I drew was a clean, precise foundation for the life I was building for myself. Justice, delivered by procedure, honor, reclaimed by the truth, and freedom, earned by finally having the power to say no. My story had ended where it began, under the glow of Christmas lights. But this time, I was the one who decided when to turn them on. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Do not forget to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories and like this video. And if you want to support us, please hit that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.